I think you're selling yourself a little bit short there. You were telling me earlier on about how you bought your first bike and ended up making a profit from it.
Yes.
I was like, well, this is pretty easy. How do I go about that?
Half the guys I work with were selling cars out of high school, so you didn't need to go to school. Most people would have been like, well, I need to find a job with my degree.
Interestingly, you're just solo broker.
Me, myself, and I.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of My First Commission. My name's Liam and I'm sat here in Las Vegas, Nevada with the owner and broker at NV Equity Realty, Dale Daniel. Dale, how's it going?
Good. How about yourself?
Yeah, good, thank you. So, thank you for sitting down and talking with us today. One of the first things that we always like to ask all of our guests are, how did you get into real estate and why did you decide to get into this industry?
Yeah, so I guess growing up, my parents were buying and selling land in the 80s, 90s, and so I was always around real estate. And so I thought, I always knew that I would do something in real estate, but then my parents kind of got into development a little bit. And so I thought, I'm going to go to college and have like a background in construction and maybe incorporate into real estate and develop more property is, what I originally thought. And there are many developers today who have real estate license and develop property and buy land and do it all in one house. So
And you got a really interesting story, right? You kind of went into this at probably one of the worst times in it.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
around the 08 recession.
Right.
So tell me about that, kind of going through the journey on the path to going into kind of the construction world and kind of how you then pivoted.
Yeah, so part of graduation, you have to do an internship. And on that internship, you have to have so many hours. And at the time, like you said, construction was at its all-time worst. And a lot of the people I was graduating with couldn't find an internship. And then sure enough, I decided, let me get my real estate license in my last semester of college. And then 2 weeks in, I ended up getting a call for an internship. So I actually stopped going to the school, finished that internship out, and then that company ended up hiring me. Year and 10 months in, ended up getting laid off. But during that time, I was buying and selling things like privately. And so I decided to take on a sales position in the automotive business. And then as I worked there and just got really good at sales on a professional level, I thought, let me get my real estate license. And then by that time, when I got licensed, real estate was still very slow, especially land and commercial, but it looked like residential was starting to pick up, And so I transitioned into residential real estate as people were renovating houses and flipping them and things like that. And then that got really good at residential and just kept it going and just kind of made commercial secondary at the time because it wasn't doing it.
I think you're selling yourself a little bit short there. You were telling me earlier on about how you bought your first bike and ended up making a profit from it.
Yes.
I was like, well, this is pretty easy. How do I go about that?
Right. Yeah, so originally what happened is I wanted a motorcycle really bad, and I ended up getting a job, saving up some money, buying a motorcycle, and my buddy crashed it right in front of my house the first week I got it. And everywhere I rode, everyone's like, oh, your bike has so many scratches. So I thought, oh man, I just want a bike with those scratches on it. I ended up listing it for a little bit more than what I paid, and someone bought it the next day, and I thought, wow, this is interesting. And then ended up buying another one, and someone bought it in 2 hours for more than what I paid. And I was like, wow, this really works. And then fast forward, I think I ended up buying, over 40 motorcycles and 40 cars, and then turned into selling a few iPhones and furniture and dining room sets, and then I ended up selling a boat. And so just anything that technically I could get my hands on privately was just kind of buying and selling. That was like my inexperienced sales prior to working in the automotive business, like on a professional level.
Yeah, so you have this kind of hobby where you've kind of stumbled into it, right? You get good at shifting things on the internet into real life. Then you're working, you get laid off, and then you go straight into the car world.
Correct, because it's just funny because when I was selling these things privately, I was doing pretty well, and when I got my first job in construction, I didn't necessarily love it the most, and I told my mom, I was like, I don't know if I could do this. I'm doing great in the motorcycle business, and she was like, well, motorcycles won't last forever. Like, you can't just buy and sell motorcycles forever. You have to have like a professional job, and you have to grow within a company. And so that's one reason I still stuck out in that construction job. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to disappoint my parents, and I want to keep it going. And when I got laid off, I feel like most people would have been like, well, I need to find a job with my degree. I need to find another construction company or another avenue. But I thought, I'm going to do something that no one's going to think I'm going to do. Because working in the automotive business, half the guys I work with were selling cars out of high school. so you didn't need to go to school. But at the same time, these people were making 3 times the amount, or at least double the amount that I was making for my college degree job. And so, my first, I ended up becoming store champion my first quarter. I would have beat the store record for first time sales consultant. I tied it. If I sold one more car, I would have beat it my first month. And that was more of my introduction into actually working a 9 to 5 and actually selling, and that shaped the way for me to go into real estate. And I'm so thankful for that job, because that job, the sales training, and every day we'd have to role play. Like every morning in the pre-shift, you'd say, hey, 2 people role play, pretend like doing a car sale. Then there's something called e-office, where you're taking phone calls and doing finance apps over the phone. And that was huge, because I feel like because of that part of the job, that's why I'm so good on the phone. And I technically I was already pretty good on the phone, because everything, selling cars and motorcycles and things privately, that was all by phone and email. So but once again, I always consider that inexperience, because it was just something I did on the side, like a hobby, like you said. Yeah. And then it just turned into something so awesome, and yeah.
So you're selling cars, right? Mm-hmm. At what moment do you go, oh, I should probably revisit this real estate thing?
Right. I think it's like, you want to, it's like kind of like a everyday we get better kind of thing. And so from doing motorcycles and making such an amount of money, or whatever you want to call it, and then getting into construction and not necessarily loving it so much, and then doing something where I'm like, hey, I've already sold cars and motorcycles before. This is something I enjoy doing. And then, obviously I feel like the customers that I met with kind of shaped the way. As I was, working in car sales, people would come in and, buy certain cars and would bring tax returns or W-2s. And I'm like, wow, these people are making a ton of money in, whether it be timeshare sales and real estate, attorneys, doctors, things like that. I was like, okay, I'll tell you, I was only selling cars for 9 months. I wasn't there like forever. And I just knew quickly, I was like, you know what, what's that next step? And that next step ended up being real estate.
You graduate from selling motorbikes on the side to selling cars full-time, to then jumping into real estate. How did you go about it? How did you pick your school? What choices did you have?
Yeah, so originally I picked Key Realty School when I was in college in the class. But like I was telling you, I ended up 2 weeks into the class, I stopped going because I got my internship. So that was a full-time internship, so I had to go to the office, so I stopped. And then I still had my binder, all my coursework, everything, and I just kind of sitting on the counter there. And, when I decided, hey, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to transition into real estate, I just kind of opened the book back up, started going through it, and then I said, okay, let me go do the live classes, instructors, all that. They're extremely helpful, tons of good information. They really prep you for the exams and everything to get licensed. So pretty much from leaving the automotive industry, I got licensed 2 weeks after. I mean, it was almost that quick.
And then, so you get the license, and then do you completely go cold turkey? I'm not going to touch a car again. Do you go full time? Is there a transition period?
Yeah, the car thing, I was so good at it, so I figured if I was just browsing for a second and I see something and there's a quick deal, even today, sometimes I still
get back in the saddle.
Yeah, sometimes if I see something, I'll go pick it up really quick, if it's quick. But my full dedication is real estate, and like I said, if it's something that's close by and won't take too much time or affect business, I'll go for it, But it's one of those things where, you almost have to dedicate your full, you won't be good at anything if you don't focus on one thing, right? The kind of if you're chasing 3 rabbits, you may not catch one, but if you focus on one.
Yeah, so you get the license. How did you go about picking the broker that you ended up working with?
So originally, when I got licensed, I wanted to do land. And there's a gentleman that we did business with within the family, and his son started his own brokerage that was a similar age to mine, and all he focused on was land. So then I said to myself, okay, I'll go, if he'll take me on, I'd like to work with him and start in land. My parents weren't licensed or anything. They were more just investors, but I thought if I can find a way to acquire land and how they bought it, that would be very awesome. But at the time, land was just, there was very few land deals going on. It was so difficult. And then around that time, one of my buddies approached me and was like, hey, I think, he knew I was good with money, and he's like, hey, I have this property. I really think you should buy it. I think we can make money on this. And sure enough, I ended up buying it, and we did a small renovation to it. It was nothing crazy, and we sold it in 4 weeks, and we did very well. And so that kind of started my residential journey, where I was like, wow, I think there's money in residential, not so much commercial at this time. And so I decided, I went and sat with that broker and I said, hey, like, can you supervise these residential deals? And he goes, no, I can't. We're strictly a land commercial brokerage. You have to go work for someone who can supervise your residential transactions. So I ended up leaving and going to a residential brokerage.
So how did it feel getting that first check on the investment side?
Yeah, that was awesome. It was pretty cool because it was just so straightforward. I'm a big numbers guy, so I just, and being with a construction background, I feel like everything is square foot pricing. So it's like a good indicator of, let's say, for example, if I tell you to build this house will cost $180 a square foot, and if I can buy it for $150 a square foot, $150 a square foot, then it's like I'm getting $30 less than what it costs to rebuild. That's like an indicator of, hey, this is a pretty good deal. And so when I was buying that house, I remember it was like $60 a square foot, which at the time I was like, oh my gosh, this home cannot be rebuilt. I didn't even see the house in person. I bought it off the pictures.
Sight unseen.
Yeah. And sure enough, then after we closed on it, did a quick walkthrough, I was just like, oh my gosh, like, okay, it's not that bad. And after the remodel, it was awesome, and it just all worked out. Like, it was pretty cool. And sure enough, like I said, getting that first check, and it was like, wow, that, and it was awesome. And then it's like, what's next? And then I think I ended up doing 5 or 6 more, like, in a row with these same guys. And at the time I was doing it, technically I was doing it as an investor. But then I thought, you know what, now that I'm licensed, because I'm trying to think, I forgot till I licensed around this time. It's very close, but at the time I thought, okay, why don't I try to get my own deals instead of getting them through this company,
So how did you get this? So your investment is one piece, right? You're doing multiple deals on the side, flipping houses. When you're going to get your residential clients for yourself, just to be the agent that represents them, how did you acquire those clients in your first couple of years?
Yeah, so in my first couple of years, what I did was I was just a referral agent, because I feel like anyone that gets licensed, the first thing you do is reach out to your immediate friends and family, and, maybe they'll use you, maybe they're not. Maybe they're like, hey, like, you just started, I don't know, like, this is the largest purchase of my life. I don't know if I want someone inexperienced. I did something that I thought was the right thing, and I still think it is to this day. And what I did is I offered a commission rebate. In Nevada, you're allowed to rebate a portion of your commission towards the buyer's closing cost. So I offered a commission rebate on every transaction. And at the time when I first started, I said, look, I will rebate 50% of my total commission on every transaction.
Wow.
Just give me a shot. And everyone was just like, wow, this kid's crazy. Like, why would he do that? And sure enough, like, everybody, a lot of people use me, and I would have 3-4 deals going on at the same time because of that rebate. And then as I got better and better and better and better, I still kept going the rebate, because everyone would tell their friends and family, like, hey, you have to call Dale. Like, he's literally
going to give you money to buy this
yeah,
house.
he's like paying you to buy his house technically, right? And then it turned into like, and then at the same time, I've never charged anyone a transaction fee. I do it for zero, and just those two combined, I felt like I was adding value, and people felt it was a great deal, and who doesn't want a great deal? And so even to this day, I still rebate on transactions, but now I'm at a point where, being an expert negotiator, and I'm consistently getting very, very good deals on property, whether I'm getting the best pricing, the best terms, things like that. So I still rebate as an incentive, because I like to give back to my clients, but I just don't do 50% anymore.
Yeah. You kind of double hitting yourself if you get the sale price lower,
yes.
and then you're giving 50%.
Yes.
It's like, oh, more's coming out of my pocket.
Right.
Yeah. So you got licensed in 2013.
Yes.
Okay. And then you were telling me earlier on, almost at the 2-year mark,
correct,
you had a calendar reminder in your phone to go and get your broker license. Why did you go ahead and do that?
Yeah. So at the time, because in real estate, let's say, for example, you work for brokers that only does residential, they can only supervise a residential transaction. If that broker has no commercial experience, like let's say, for example, someone calls me and says, Dale, I want to buy this hotel. If my broker doesn't have hotel experience, they can't supervise that deal. It means I can't do that transaction at that office. So just like when I first started in land, that gentleman could not supervise residential deals. So as I started in land, and I still did little commercial on this, but I did way more residential. As I got to my 2-year mark, I thought, hey, I need to work for an office that will let me do both. And I try to interview many brokers, and everyone's like, no, like at our office, you can only do residential. We don't have experience in land, commercial leasing, or retail, so you can't practice any of those here. Then I was talking to my cousin. My cousin's like, well, you already know how to do both, and you have your full-time real estate verification. Like, your brokers just have to sign off on your full-time experience for the last 2 years, and you can apply for your broker license. And I said, okay, why don't I do that? Because I can technically supervise both because I've done both for this last 2 years. And sure enough, both my brokers filled out my experience verification, and then I used my financials and everything, and I put it all together, applied for my broker's license, and got it. So
years ago, pretty much to the day.
Yes, that's about 10 years ago this month.
Wow,
yeah.
Time flies, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And interestingly, you're just solo broker.
So I'm just by myself, just a solo broker. I never took anyone on. It's just me, myself, and I.
Why is that?
Sometimes I think about, like, should I, go in and bring all these people on, all these things. And sometimes people say, I don't want to say take on so much more headache, but I work directly with this may or may not be the right thing, but I work directly with every single client. I don't just pass them off to someone. Everyone that I work with gets the same customer service, the same value, the same everything on every transaction. So for me, like, as a business, I didn't look at it as, hey, I'm going to bring on a ton of people and just say, hey, I'm getting 30 phone calls, let me pass it on to him and him and him. And I don't know if they're going to treat them the same way, or if their experience is the same as mine. Or, once again, I don't know if that's the best way to look at it. If someone is looking to scale and they said, hey, I want to have an office in every state, yeah, you can't do everything. I'm only one person. And they'll say, like, you're one person going up against teams, and how am I supposed to beat all these people? I grow my business, But as of today, like, this is how I've been running it. But sometimes I do think about growing and expanding. But for now, I'm doing it the solo way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're a very busy boy.
Yes.
Yeah, you're not just doing real estate. You've got a really interesting side gig as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I do work in the nights, in the night background in nightlife. When I first started real estate in 2000, or when I got licensed in 2013, once again, a lot of people get into real estate, and you'll hear, like, they don't do a single transaction their first year. And once again, I was always good with money and saving money, so I didn't necessarily have to take on a night job. But my mom was a nurse, and she was like, you have to have insurance my whole life. She's like, insurance is the most important thing. And so I took on a night job at a nightclub, and I was doing that in the night while I was doing real estate during the daytime. And then as I worked in nightlife, I shared with coworkers that I'm licensed, and people say, oh, okay, hey, I'm looking to buy a house, and they would use me. So it actually ended up working out, so I still work in nightlife to date, and everywhere that I've worked, a lot of people are very comfortable with me, and they're like, hey, Dale's really nice, Dale's very cool, has great knowledge, and they end up buying property from me. Even actually, some of my customers have bought property from me, which is so
while you're at the table.
Right? Yeah, I was at the table and just talking to them, and when they end up following me on Instagram, and I'll post here and there. I don't like to spam everyone, but when I have a closing or something going under contract, I'll let everyone know. And he wrote me, and he's like, hey, I'm actually moving to Las Vegas from Seattle, and I want to buy a house. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'd be more than happy. And keep in mind, like, I'm serving him, right? And so it's one of those things where it's like, are you really going to trust your service assistant to handle a real estate transaction? The guests I deal with are all, I would say they're all in great position. And this particular deal was a $1.5 million house.
Oh, wow.
And he, showed up. We ended up doing the deal together, and he still lives here to date in the same house and everything. That was about 3 years ago now.
Wow. So the advice is to future agents is go and get a job at a nightclub.
No, yeah. It goes both ways, because I think that you have to look, you have to, if for a new agent going into the business, I almost want to say, like, anyone can do this. Like, if you're bussing tables, at a restaurant, but you get your license and your coworkers, and you offer, like I did, I'm not saying everyone go offer a 50% rebate, but if you say, hey, like, I work at this office, and I'm spending a lot of time here all week, I'm training with the broker, they're showing me everything, hey, when you're ready to buy a house, let me know, I'd be more than happy to take care of you. Because like, when you're starting up brand new, and let's say you don't have money for marketing or Google ads or whatever it may be, like you do reach out to immediate friends and family. And then on top of that, there's a lot of competition. I feel like almost in every friend or family, there's already that person that's already licensed, right? So you have to find a way to earn their business. And I think going to Key Realty School and getting the right training is so important. And so that way, when you explain to your coworkers or friends, family, and you talk the talk and you say, hey, like, I went to the best school and this is what I learned and this is what I'm going to do for you. And on top of that, the brokerage I work for, like, here's my broker's Zillow and look, all the reviews and the training and the company that I work for. And then as you get busier and busier and busier, like when I started in the car business, for example, we'd have to go up to the front, stand at the front, and you get one deal. And at a point, like I was getting so good where I'd be sitting at my desk and the phone would ring and they're like, hey, such and such is here to see you. And I'm like, I don't have any appointment today. But it was someone that referred someone, and people would just come in and say, hey, I'm here to see Dale to buy a car because they had such a great experience. And the same thing goes in real estate where you don't need to work another job or you don't need to work a night job. The phone just keeps ringing and your business just keeps growing. Because once again, like I said, I still do it because I do enjoy.
It's more for the love of the game.
Yeah, it's a social thing. Like I work with great people. I love the people I work with. Some of these people I've worked with, some of the people I still work with today, like I worked with 10 years ago, and we're kind of all in the same business. And, I still get deals from work. I do enjoy it. It's in the off hours. I guess you could call it a paid hobby, if anything. I promise I don't feel like I'm at work when I'm working nights,
Yeah.
And it doesn't affect business. It's off hours. And, but at the same time, like I've had other friends who, quit the nightclub and they're like, I wish I went full-time in real estate. I wish I went all in, So if you were to tell me how would I'd advise someone, I think there's two ways. One way is like work that night job and market to your immediate coworkers, friends, family. But the other one is like go all in on this, and I've had agents who spend the whole first year, don't sell a single property, and they're just trying and going and learning. And the second year they make and they make enough to cover the first year and the second year. And when you go all in, it just, like I said, I have some who are like, I wish I knew this 4 years ago and never touched, never worked in the nightclub ever. I just went all in on this and just focused on this. So
what's your secret?
I think I think trust. I think trust is the most important thing, because in any sales business, right, there's just always people who only care about commission. It doesn't matter who you are, anything, it's just a dollar value. Hey, I need to sell this house. I have to. Like, some people have come up to me and I'll tell them, like, hey, like, I don't think you should buy this house. Like, and I'll X, Y, Z, whatever the reasons may be. And, so I think it's being trustworthy, being honest. Like, I'll tell people, like, look, like, some people call me, like, hey, Dale, I'm in the initial stages and I want to buy a house. And some people will just, like, kind of, I guess you could say, taste the blood in the water. Like, yes, I'm gonna sell this guy. I'm gonna get him into a house tomorrow. Versus, like, I'll say, hey, like, I promise you, like, here's all the information. Here's what's going on with the market. This is kind of like the houses you're looking at in your price point in your area. And I said, hey, look, whenever you're ready, let me know. We don't have to like do this deal today in the next 30 days. Like, just let me know whenever you're ready. And for example, I have a really like awesome client. And like I said, they told me, one time, hey, I want to buy. I never bugged him about it, never said anything. They called me like 3 years later. And we have a mutual friends who are all licensed. And they came up to me and they're like, hey, the reason we went with you is like, you are not pushy. You never bugged us. You gave us space and let us know when you're ready. Like, such and such called us every week. Like, hey, are you ready? I want to send you this. I want to send you this. Hey, take a look at this one. They're really, really pushing us when we weren't ready. So I feel like it's just being trustworthy, letting everyone know, like, hey, I'm not here just to make money on you. Like, I could argue like there's some, you can't do it for the money. You truly have to do it because you care about the client. At least that's how I do it.
And that's helped you build a successful business.
Correct.
And if you could go back 10 years ago to the day that you got your license and give yourself one bit of advice for that first year, Dale, what would you tell yourself?
10 years ago, I think, I would have, for myself, I was a little scared to take on leverage, and I think I would have invested a lot more 10 years ago for sure, knowing what I know today. Real estate is a great investment. And I think that's the best part of this is because when you're selling someone a home, you're not just technically just selling them a home, right? You're selling them something that historically grows in value. And, that equity can be used for many things where in one situation you can pull money out of the home, whether it's to invest and grow more money that can help your family or, create things that are generational, and so, so I think, Yeah, I think
So your advice is buy Bitcoin back in 20. Yeah.
Yeah.
When it was like $1.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Put everything in Bitcoin 10 years ago.
Buy houses when they're dirt cheap, sell them when they're really high.
Yeah.
Do you still have a lot of your own investment properties, or are you fully out?
No, I do. So I kept rolling the money over, and like I said, I almost like never spend anything. I just kind of keep saving up, and so I ended up developing a commercial project. It's about 18-unit shopping center, 3-building. I finished the shell construction on this one in 2016 that I own 20% of today, and then I handle all the management and leasing for that property today as well.
So do you have your property manager license?
Because I'm an owner of the property, I don't have to be a licensed property manager to manage my own property. But yes, if I was representing other property owners to do management for them, I'd have to get licensed.
Right, you're managing your own property, you're doing a full-time brokerage, and you're keeping Vegas very hydrated in the evening.
Yeah, I think you could say that. Definitely very, very busy. When I started this business, I had no gray hair.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this.
I mean, for a man that gets a lack of sleep over the weekend, you're looking pretty good. I don't think I could handle it. So Dale, you said it earlier on, like advice, but if the audience for this podcast are people that are thinking about getting their license, or they're going through the licensing journey, or they've just passed their test, what would you say to someone that's sat on the fence right now about getting into the industry?
I'll tell you, it's not easy. If you think you're just gonna jump into real estate and say, hey, my aunt's gonna buy a house for me tomorrow, and you have to understand, there's so many agents in this town, and everyone's experienced, and you're going up against some of the best. If let's say there's a property, and I guess this was a thing in the pandemic, when there's 7, 8, 10, 15 offers on a house, and you have an inexperienced agent, submitting an offer, you're not going to get it. I knew, based on my experience in the pandemic, there's so many deals. I wrote so many offers, and I knew I could get these deals done just based on experience. I know no inexperienced agent's going to get there. But what I'm trying to say is that, for example, going to a Key Realty School, and make sure you have the best education going into this, right? You have to be the sharpest in this business. And I think the second part of that is, the brokers that you select. You have to make sure you're going to work for someone who's going to train and supervise and say, hey, even though you're an inexperienced agent, but maybe you're part of a team, and the team has a ton of deals, and you get to learn from every transaction on the team, whether you learn an inspection, a contract. I think the most successful agents that I know today, that are friends of mine, they were on a team. And being on a team that's already busy, and they're literally they're in the office at 9, and they're literally going to inspection, writing a contract. They get to see someone else's deal and all the issues and all the challenges to getting to the closing table. Those are the best ones today. Once you see a handful of deals and you're like, hey, I got a pretty good idea, the hang of this. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's something new on every transaction. Even being a broker for 10 years, there's still something new on every deal. Something comes up that you're like, I've never seen this before. And but I think being a part of a team is extremely helpful, because you get exposed to so many transactions versus going in independent, not knowing anyone. Maybe you get a deal, maybe you don't, and kind of just learning on your own. I think being a part of a team is extremely helpful.
So the opposite of what you've done.
Yeah, I guess if you say if I went back 10 years, I think that may be the answer then. That if I was part of a team and went all in and just learned off of other people's transactions, just saw, hey, because once again, in real estate, there's some people who don't do a single transaction for the whole year. How could they learn anything if they didn't process one deal? So versus going onto a team that has 10 active deals, and you get to see 10 inspections, 10 financings, 10 closings, 10 inspections. I mean, just the whole thing, just getting exposed to 10 deals in a short time period, that could pave the way for a very, very, very successful agent, because you're exposed to everything so early on. Because some people won't see 10 deals in their first 2 years, sometimes.
I imagine you did more than 10 in your first year.
Maybe. But, like I said, I was always around this, but the actual transaction and contract and negotiations, that I don't want to say that can't be taught. I mean, it's something once you start doing it, every deal just has its own way. Every seller is different. Every buyer is different. The expectations are different. Negotiations are different. Sometimes you're working with another, an agent who's inexperienced, and that has its own challenges. Now,
this has been fantastic. I appreciate you taking time out of your very busy schedule to come and chat with us. If someone wants to kind of follow your journey or get in touch, where's the best way to get a hold of you?
I would say you can go ahead and give me a call. You know, that would be the best way. Like I was telling you, like I'm not so much, I don't do a ton of marketing. I'm more of a referral agent, and people kind of reach out to me by word of mouth.
Yeah, and then if you're in Vegas and you need a hookup, right, follow you on Instagram.
Yeah.
Make sure they get in touch there.
Right, there you go.
No, fantastic. This has been a pleasure. I think that's it, mate. That's the pod.
There you go. Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
So thank you for watching. Make sure, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel here so that you can be the first to know about our next podcast guest and you can learn how to be successful in your first year in real estate.